Josh Green here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Raven Chapman off the back of some big news a couple of days ago. How are you doing today, Raven?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. As I mentioned there, big news. Yourself against Skye Nicolson, the first women's world title fight on a RIYADH season card out in Saudi on the undercard of Beterbiev Bivol. Really exciting news. When did you learn of it and how did it come about?
After my last fight, I sort of knew that that was what we're hoping for next. Um, and obviously, me having been the mandatory for the WBC beforehand, it was kind of talked about for a little while. Obviously, you know what boxing's like. You never know if it is going to go that way because we've had plans previously that haven't happened with other fights. So it was just a case of still focusing on the fight I had at hand and then hoping that it all happens afterwards. And yeah, right about a week or so after my last fight, I just spoke to Frank and he said that it's pretty much on. You know, they're just getting it over the line now, the last push, and yeah, so very, very exciting news. Something that we was really pushing for. Another sort of barrier breaking sort of moment, really. Obviously, having uh, been with Queensbury being their only woman for a while, and then now having a few women in their boxing, and now getting the opportunity to be the first women's title fight over in Saudi. Just yeah, really humbling and really grateful that I can get that opportunity and showcase myself on such a stage and try and encourage other young girls to go for their dreams, really.
How much of a part of it is that it is now a history making bout, really? Yourself and Skye being the first two fighters to fight for a world title out there. It's a big move for RIYADH season and Saudi, and for you two to be in that position must be huge.
Yeah, it really is huge when you think about it. And I feel very proud and grateful to be given that opportunity. I feel like I've got a great dancing partner to be having that opportunity with me as well, and for it to be able to be for a world title. I feel like in women's boxing, a fight with me versus Skye is one that a lot of people have wanted to see, and something that has always been kind of, you know, something that was always thought would be there and would be a fight that would get made. So for it to be happening when we're both, in our prime, um, it is going to be a really great fight, and I think it'll be a great fight for women's boxing over in RIYADH season.
This is an opportunity you've had to wait for a little while. You've had that international belt with the WBC for 5 or 6 fights now, I think it is. Um,
Yeah,
During that time, has there been any frustration that you haven't quite got to that stage where you've got that world title fight over the line?
yeah, of course. There's with women's boxing, as we know, some people can be moved on very quickly, and I definitely felt I was deserving of that opportunity a few fights ago. But it's also just realizing this is my journey and focusing on my journey, not looking at what anyone else is doing, and just proving myself that way. Um, and also, like I said before, things happen in boxing. And I was going to have a fight for other things in the past that ended up not happening because of the way that boxing happens, and it's just one of those things. So it's just staying positive, always just looking forward and looking forward to my own journey as well, and enjoying that and not putting the pressure on, oh, I need to get this or other people getting these opportunities, and just focusing on myself, because if I put in the work, I put in the performances, I know that it's going to happen, and that's exactly what's happened, and now I get to do that on the biggest stage in world boxing. It's one of the biggest fights of the year, and yeah, I'm just really excited to be a part of that and be a part of that history and cement myself within it as well.
When these Saudi cards first came about, did you believe that there would be a chance and a time where the women's fights were sort of featured on them?
100%. I think with the involvement that sort of Frank and Queensberry had in it, as well as Matchroom, obviously Matchroom have a big stable of women fighters and female fighters. Then you had the 5v5 with Queensberry Matchroom, made it again even more likely, especially having me and Skye. But also, if you go over to MMA, they've had women's MMA over in Saudi, so it was kind of the next step, I think, for the boxing. It was just a case of when it was going to happen, I think.
And your thoughts on the opponent in the opposite corner, Skye, who's had a couple, I think it's 1 or 2 defenses of that world title now. What are your thoughts on what she can bring to the fight, and where do you think you can get the better of her?
I think it's a really exciting fight for the fans because it's 2 really good styles that, historically within boxing just go really well against each other. The matador and the bull, and it's always going to be, an interesting fight, the pure boxer and the aggressor. And, Skye is a good fighter. She holds the belt, and I think it just makes for a great fight because a lot of people have wanted to see it. And it's one of the most talked fights in women's boxing at the moment, especially in the featherweight division. I'm against someone who's at the top of their game, and I want to prove that I'm the best. And so I want to beat the best, and these are the kind of fights that you want to have. I want to face a champion and dethrone them. I don't want to be given a belt or fight for a vacant belt. I want to take it, and that's exactly the opportunity that I'm getting here. And I think being able to showcase what I can do on that stage is where we both deserve to be. To be fair.
Yeah. I know the Amanda Serrano fight is often mentioned when we speak to you, and it's one that's been long in your mind. Getting a world title and getting a win over Skye Nicolson could go a long way towards that. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, with the IBF being vacated as well, that was obviously another route we could have looked down if this fight wasn't going to happen, where I'm ranked 2 or 3 in the IBF, so that could have been a possibility. So that's still something there, and collect those belts, and then when Serrano moves back down to featherweight, fight her for all of them. That would definitely be the dream. That would be the goal, and hopefully we can make that happen.
Obviously, Amanda has her big fight first against Katie Taylor in the rematch. It's another huge fight for women's boxing. How do you see the second fight going between the 2?
I think the first fight was so tight. I feel like, to be fair, I feel like in this the second one now, I do think Amanda can win it. Especially since we've seen how Chantel managed to beat Katie in their first fight. I think that will give Serrano even more going into that fight. And yeah, I do think Amanda can do it and win that.
How far off retirement do you think someone like Amanda Serrano is, and is that a concern with you wanting a fight against Amanda?
Yeah, it's always, one of those thoughts. You just don't know how long someone's going to want to carry on doing it, keep doing what they're doing, especially when they've got to where they've got to. Having spoken to Amanda, spending a bit of time with her, she's a fighter through and through. And with fighters like that, I think it's like they just want to keep on going. They don't want to stop. So I can't see Amanda wanting to hang up the gloves anytime soon. I do think once she fights Katie, win or lose, I think she'll come back down featherweights and try and gain her belts back. As what I know of Amanda, I feel like that's what she would want to do. And hopefully that is. And then I'll have some belts and she'll have some belts, and we can fight for them all.
I know you've shared a lot of rounds with Terry Harper over the years. She's got her own fight on the horizon against Rhiannon Dixon, hopefully up in Sheffield, but there are some concerns over whether that card will go ahead now. It's been a tough time really for Terry after that loss against Sandy Ryan. We're not sure where sort of her most comfortable weight is. How do you think she'd fare against Rhiannon Dixon?
I think it'll be a really good fight, and a good fight for Terry. I think Terry's natural weight is at lightweight. You've seen how drawn out she ended up looking towards the end of her career at super feather. She's not big enough for those bigger weights either. And again, you saw that in the Sandy Ryan fight. You know, Terry had a really good camp for that, and she felt really good, but Sandy was just too big. So I think seeing her down at lightweight will be really good for Terry, and I think she'll be feeling confident and going into that fight. You know, she's got nothing to lose really and everything to gain, so there's no pressure on her as well. So that'd be the first time in a while where she'll be going into a fight with not that pressure on her shoulders. So I think we'll see a bit of the old Terry back at lightweight, where she'll be naturally strong, comfortable, be able to make the weight, not be too drawn out. So I think it's a really interesting fight. Obviously, Rhiannon's been proving herself really well on the stage as well, which makes it for a really exciting fight. You know, Rhiannon's kind of that up and comer, um, and Terry's trying to hold her place. So obviously Terry's part of my team, so I have to back Terry, and I do believe she can do it. But that's not to discredit Rhiannon. So I do think she's a very good fighter.
Women's boxing took a lot of the headlines over at the Olympics over in Paris just last month. I think a lot of people looked at the controversy surrounding the boxing and the Olympics generally as a little bit of a dark cloud. How did you sort of view it?
Yeah, I felt like there was a lot of negative reviews around it this time, especially in the women's thing. I think a lot of people just jumped on the bandwagon and believed a lot of false news, rather than hearing any facts, or there was no clear cut news of anything really. And I think everyone was very quick to judge without knowing everything, which I think is a shame. And there was a bit of like a social media like tirade, which was uncalled for, I'd say. When it comes to those fighters in particular, in my opinion, it would just come down to drug testing for the Olympics, because they will have drug testing, and as anyone else, I do drug tests on the fight. I have to abide by certain rules. So if anything gets flagged up and it's over a certain amount, then it's technically doping, isn't it? So anything that wouldn't be allowed in your normal drug test is the same. And I think that's the only way you can do it, isn't it? I don't agree with the whole like tirade on it, but I think that's because there was a lot of misinformation, and there still isn't even proper information out now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of it. Another thing that's come out in the aftermath, and it's been a story for a little while, is boxing not being a part of the Olympics in 2028. I know you spent sort of a short amount of time up at GB, but you'll know a lot of the men and women up there. How much of a hit would that be for boxing generally?
I think it would be a huge hit for boxing, because I think a lot of reasons why our amateurs don't, and they want to represent their country. They want to be able to represent England. You have the talent pathways that get you onto the assessments for GB, and you have that goal. Whereas, I mean, you do even see it now, whereas a lot of talented young fighters turn over maybe too soon, and they haven't quite had that experience at that level, at the top elite level. So I think it would be a real shame for boxing. I think we'd definitely end up seeing a massive influx of professional fighters, but then there's not enough shows. There's not, there'd be a lot of small hall, everyone trying to make the same. I think it'd be very difficult. It'd be very different. And it would be a real shame, being able to have that goal of the Olympics is a massive thing, and massive for amateur boxers.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Raven, really appreciate the time. Best of luck for October when it rolls around against
Thank
Skye.
you.
I'm sure we'll speak to you more then. And yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Thanks.